She woke before the alarm, long before the sun dared to rise. The bedroom was dim, washed in a pale blue glow from the streetlight outside, and beside her he slept as if nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. The argument from the night before still rang in her ears, his careless words, the practiced apologies, the way he had turned his back and fallen asleep while she lay awake, staring at the ceiling with tears drying silently on her temples. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if rushing might break the fragile resolve holding her together. The wardrobe door creaked when she opened it, and she froze, listening. He didn't stir. She packed only what she needed. A change of clothes, her passport, the notebook filled with ideas she had once dreamed of turning into something more. The rest, years of shared memories, sacrifices, and unspoken resentment, she left behind. In the kitchen, the clock ticked too loudly. She slid the wedding ring from her finger, feeling the faint indentation it had carved into her skin over time. For a moment, her hand trembled. Then she placed the ring on the table, right where he would see it. No letter followed. What was left to explain that hadn't already been said 100 times? At the door, she paused. This house had once felt like safety, like arrival. Now it felt like a cage she had finally unlocked from the inside. She inhaled deeply, squared her shoulders, and stepped out into the cool morning air. The street was quiet, almost peaceful. A stray cat crossed her path. Somewhere in the distance, a call to prayer echoed softly, wrapping the moment in solemn finality. She walked toward the bus stop with measured steps, each one carrying her farther from the woman she had been. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. Silence, she decided, would be her last word, and her first act of freedom. By midday, the city had fully awakened, but she felt strangely detached from its noise. She sat alone in a quiet cafe tucked between two aging buildings, the kind of place people visited when they wanted to disappear in plain sight. Steam curled lazily from a chipped porcelain cup in front of her, untouched. She had ordered coffee out of habit, not desire. Her thoughts were too loud for appetite. Her phone lay on the table, screen dark, yet commanding all her attention. She unlocked it and scrolled, not through social media, not through news, but through an archive of a life she had deliberately erased. Old emails, unsent drafts, conversations that ended with her silence. And then she saw his name. Alexander Royce. The name alone tightened her chest. Years ago, he had spoken of global markets and bold ideas, of building something that would outlast both of them. More importantly, he had spoken of her, her mind, her instincts, her potential. He had offered her a place beside him, not behind him. She remembered laughing it off back then, saying she wanted love, not ambition. She had chosen marriage, believing it would be enough. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Pride whispered that it was too late. Fear warned her not to reopen doors best left closed. But regret was louder than both. Slowly, she typed a single sentence, erased it, typed again. Finally, she sent it. "I'm sorry. I should have listened." The message disappeared, delivered into a world far removed from this quiet cafe. She expected nothing. She told herself that even reaching out was closure enough. She set the phone face down and stared out the window, watching people hurry past, each carrying a purpose she felt she had lost. 10 minutes later, the phone vibrated. Once, then again. Her breath caught as she turned it over. 6 words stared back at her, stark and undeniable. "Where are you right now?" There was no anger, no accusation, just immediacy, just certainty. In that moment, she understood something with startling clarity. Some connections don't fade with time. They wait. And as her fingers tightened around the phone, she realized that the past she had buried was not finished with her yet. It was reaching back, ready to change everything. The small private airport sat on the edge of the city, quiet enough that every sound carried. She stood near the glass terminal windows, her reflection faint and unfamiliar. Tired eyes, determined jaw, a woman suspended between what she had lost and what she might reclaim. When she arrived, the staff had looked at her with polite confusion. She didn't look like someone waiting for a jet. She barely felt like someone with a destination at all. Then the air changed. A distant thunder rolled across the runway, low and deliberate. Heads turned. Conversations stalled mid-sentence. She stepped closer to the glass as a sleek black aircraft descended from the sky, sunlight slicing along its wings. The name Royce International gleamed on the fuselage, unmistakable, powerful. Her heart pounded, not with disbelief, but with recognition. He had come himself. The jet touched down with practiced precision, tires kissing the runway as if the ground had been waiting. Engines slowed, but the presence of the aircraft only grew heavier, commanding. When the door opened, time seemed to narrow to a single point. Alexander Royce appeared at the top of the steps, tailored coat unmoved by the wind, expression calm yet intent. He scanned the tarmac once, and then his gaze found her. The years between them collapsed in an instant. He descended the stairs without hurry, every step measured, until he stood a few feet away. "You look different," he said, voice low. Not judging, observing. "So do you," she replied, surprised at her own steadiness. He studied her face, as if reading chapters no one else had been allowed to see. "You shouldn't have disappeared," he said gently. "Not like that. I thought I had to," she answered. "I thought choosing love meant letting everything else go." A faint smile touched his lips, not triumphant, but understanding. "You were never meant to shrink yourself for anyone." He extended his hand. No explanations, no apologies, just a choice. She hesitated only a second. Behind her lay a life of compromise and quiet erasure. Ahead stood risk, power, and the woman she almost forgot how to be. She placed her hand in his. As they walked toward the jet, whispers followed them, but she no longer heard them. The aircraft door closed behind her with a soft, final click. And as the engine surged, she knew, this was not an escape. It was a return. The jet climbed smoothly, slicing through layers of cloud until the world below softened into muted shapes and distant light. She sat by the window, her forehead resting lightly against the cool glass, watching the last traces of the city dissolve beneath them. Streets became lines, buildings became shadows, and the life she had just left behind grew smaller with every passing second. For the first time, the weight in her chest loosened. Inside the cabin, everything was quiet elegance, warm lighting, polished wood, the subtle scent of leather and citrus. Alexander sat across from her, giving her space, as if he understood that this moment belonged to her alone. A flight attendant offered champagne. She declined, choosing water instead. She wanted clarity, not numbness. "You're not here because I rescued you," Alexander said after a while, breaking the silence. His tone was steady, deliberate. "You're here because you're capable of more than the life you were trapped in." She met his gaze. No pity lived there, no savior complex, just respect. He opened a slim tablet and turned it toward her. Charts, projections, strategies, familiar territory she hadn't walked in years. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from recognition. "I never stopped following your ideas," he continued. "Even the ones you never published. You think differently. That's rare." Her fingers hovered over the screen, then moved with growing confidence. Words returned. Instinct returned. It felt like stepping back into her own skin. In that moment, she understood something vital. This wasn't a second chance given, it was a second chance claimed. As the jet leveled off, sunlight flooded the cabin. She straightened in her seat, no longer the woman who had slipped out of a house at dawn with a silent goodbye. She was a strategist again. A visionary. A force. Far below, the past finally released its grip. Ahead, beyond the clouds, waited boardrooms, decisions, and a future shaped by her own hands. She smiled. Not because everything was certain, but because for the first time in years, everything was possible.